The wallet lay half submerged in a pool, its black leather glinting under the morning sun. She almost walked past it, but something about the way it contrasted against the pale sand made her pause. Little did she know this waterlogged object would lead her on a journey that would heal two broken hearts and bridge a gap that no ocean could separate. The coastal community had always been a place of transience. Naval personnel came and went with their deployments, tourists ebbed and flowed with the seasons, and locals weathered it all with the same resilience as they did the winter storms. The woman had moved there just 18 months ago, seeking solace in the rhythmic crash of waves after losing her mother to cancer. The small cottage she rented overlooked the shore, and her morning walks had become a ritual of healing. That particular dawn had revealed a beach transformed by the previous night's storm. Driftwood, seaweed, and treasures from the deep littered the normally pristine stretch of sand. She loved these post-storm mornings most, treating them as nature's gift shop, open briefly before the tide reclaimed its offerings. The wallet caught her eye just as she was about to turn back. Black leather against golden sand, partially exposed from beneath a piece of driftwood as if waiting to be discovered. She approached it curiously, noticing the emblem of the United States Navy embossed on its exterior. Military issue, not the kind of thing typically lost by a careless beachgoer. Kneeling beside it, she carefully lifted the wallet from its resting place. It was heavier than expected, waterlogged but surprisingly intact. She gently opened it, water dripping from its creases. Inside, protected somewhat by the folded leather, were the contents of a sailor's life. The military ID was still legible, though water-damaged around the edges. A young man with serious eyes and the hint of reluctance in his formal pose stared back at her. According to the issue date, the ID was only 7 years old. Behind it, she found several soggy dollar bills, a faded receipt, and a plastic sleeve containing photographs. With careful fingers, she slid the photos from their protective case. The first showed the same young sailor from the ID, but in this image, he was smiling broadly, his arm around an elderly woman who shared his eyes and the curve of his jaw. Mother and son, unmistakably. They stood before a modest house with a wheelchair ramp leading to the front door. The second photo made her breath catch. The young sailor knelt beside a hospital bed where the same elderly woman lay, looking significantly frailer. Between them was a newborn baby, tiny and wrinkled, cradled awkwardly but tenderly in the sailor's hands as he helped his mother hold her grandchild. On the back, written in blue ink slightly blurred by water damage, 3 generations together. 2 days before deployment. Tucked behind the photos was a folded piece of paper that had been partially protected from the water. She opened it with delicate care, revealing a handwritten letter on lined notebook paper. The handwriting was shaky, elderly, but determined in its careful formation of each word. "My dearest son," it began. "By the time you read this, you'll be at sea. The doctor says I don't have much time left, perhaps not even until you return. Please don't blame yourself for leaving. Your service makes me proud every day. I'll watch over your little one while you're gone, for as long as I can. And after that, I'll watch over both of you from somewhere else. The baby brings me such joy in these final days. Thank you for bringing your child into my life before I had to leave yours. All my love, always." The woman felt tears forming in her eyes. Had the sailor received this letter before losing the wallet? Did he know his mother's final thoughts? And what about the baby? Her mind filled with questions as she carefully returned the items to the wallet. In another compartment, she found a small notebook, its pages rippled from water exposure. Most entries were mundane, daily logs and reminders. But the final entry, dated just 2 weeks ago, read, "Mom's condition worsening. Emergency leave denied. Baby with neighbor until I can figure something out. 3 months left on deployment. Need to find permanent solution." The woman sat on the sand, the weight of what she held suddenly feeling much heavier than mere leather and paper. This wasn't just a lost possession. This was a life in crisis, a family separated by duty and illness. The sailor was still deployed, his mother likely gone by now, and somewhere a baby needed its father. She made her decision instantly. She would find this sailor and return not just his wallet, but perhaps some peace of mind. The naval base was less than 20 miles away. It was a place to start. The security checkpoint at the base entrance was intimidating, but the woman approached with determination. The guard regarded her curiously as she explained her discovery, handling the water-damaged wallet with surprising gentleness when she showed it to him. "This definitely belongs to one of ours," he confirmed, examining the ID. "But I can't give you personal information about the sailor. Best I can do is take the wallet and ensure it gets returned." The woman hesitated. Simply handing over the wallet felt insufficient, impersonal. "Could you at least tell me if he's currently deployed?" The notebook mentions emergency leave being denied. His mother was very ill, and there's a baby involved. Something in her earnestness must have reached the guard. His professional demeanor softened slightly. "Let me make a call." He stepped away, speaking quietly into his phone. When he returned, his expression had changed. The sailor in question is indeed deployed on a submarine. Communications are limited. But I've spoken with the family support coordinator. There's a situation with this family that they're aware of. The mother, the woman asked gently. "Passed away 3 days ago," the guard confirmed. "The baby is currently in temporary foster care. The sailor has been granted emergency leave and is being recalled, but submarine extractions take time. He doesn't even know about his mother yet." The woman felt her heart constrict. The baby shouldn't be with strangers. Not when the father is coming home. The guard studied her for a moment. "There's someone you should talk to. The family support coordinator is on her way here now." Within the hour, the woman found herself in a small office on base, explaining her discovery to a compassionate but professional woman in civilian clothes. The coordinator examined the wallet contents carefully, her eyes lingering on the photograph of the 3 generations. "This sailor's situation is particularly challenging," she explained. His mother was the baby's only caregiver during deployment. No father in the picture. The neighbor who was helping has her own health issues and couldn't continue after the grandmother's hospitalization. "We're working on reaching him, but it could be another week before he's back." "A week with the baby in foster care?" the woman asked, distressed by the thought. "Unfortunately, yes. The system works slowly, even for military families." The woman took a deep breath. "I could help. I work remotely. My cottage has a spare room. I could provide temporary care until the father returns." The coordinator looked surprised. "That's very generous, but there are protocols, background checks." "I understand. I've actually been through the process before. I was a foster parent in my previous home." She hadn't planned to reveal this part of her life, but it seemed relevant now. "My certification is probably still valid. I can provide references." The surprise on the coordinator's face shifted to thoughtful consideration. "Let me make some calls." What followed was a whirlwind of paperwork, calls to her previous foster care agency, and rapid verification of her credentials. Her prior experience as a foster parent expedited the process in ways she hadn't expected. By evening, the coordinator had returned with cautious optimism. "We've received emergency approval for a temporary placement, given the circumstances. The baby's social worker will bring her tomorrow morning. It would just be until the father returns and can make permanent arrangements." The woman felt an unexpected flutter of both nervousness and excitement. Her home, which had felt so empty since her mother's passing, would have a child's presence again, if only briefly. "She asked, realizing she didn't even know the baby's gender. A 5-month-old girl, the coordinator confirmed with a small smile. According to the paperwork, she has her grandmother's eyes. The next morning, the woman prepared her cottage with meticulous care. The spare room, which had been her mother's during her final months, was transformed with borrowed items from the base's family center, a portable crib, changing table, and the essential supplies needed for infant care. When the social worker arrived with the baby, the woman felt her heart expand at the sight of the tiny bundle. The infant had indeed inherited those same serious eyes that had gazed out from the sailor's ID photo, now wide with curiosity as she took in her new surroundings. "She's been through a lot of transitions already," the social worker explained as she demonstrated the baby's routine. "But she's remarkably adaptable." After the social worker left, the woman held the baby girl, rocking gently as they looked out the cottage window toward the sea. "Your daddy's out there somewhere," she whispered. "And he's coming home to you as fast as he can." The days that followed established a new rhythm in the cottage. The woman's remote work schedule adapted around feedings, naps, and floor play with the increasingly curious infant. Each evening, they would sit on the porch facing the ocean, and she would tell the baby stories about her father, the sailor, and her grandmother who had loved her so much. On the 4th day, as she was changing the baby, she noticed a small birthmark on her shoulder, shaped almost like a crescent moon. That evening, she found herself looking again at the photos from the wallet. In the hospital image, just visible at the edge of the blanket wrapped around the newborn, was the same distinctive mark. "You really are connected to him," she told the baby softly. "He's carried you with him all this time." On the morning of the 6th day, the family support coordinator called. "The sailor has reached shore. He's been informed about his mother and about his daughter's situation. He'll be arriving at the base this afternoon." The woman felt a complex mix of emotions. Joy that the father and daughter would be reunited, but also a surprising pang of preemptive loss. In less than a week, this small being had worked her way into a heart still healing from its own losses. "Should I bring her to the base?" she asked. "Actually, he's asked to come to you. He wants to see his daughter in a home environment, not an office. If that's all right with you." The woman agreed immediately, then spent the next few hours in nervous preparation. She bathed the baby, dressed her in her nicest outfit, and prepared a simple meal, assuming the sailor would be hungry after his journey. When the knock came at her door, her heart pounded as if she were meeting someone she had known for years rather than a stranger whose most personal possessions she had found by chance. She opened the door to find a young man in naval uniform, his face drawn with grief and exhaustion but his eyes alert with anticipation. "Your daughter is eager to see you," she said simply, stepping aside to reveal the baby playing on a blanket in the living room. The transformation in the sailor's face was immediate and profound. The weariness fell away, replaced by wonder as he knelt beside his daughter. The baby looked up, curious about the new presence, and then broke into a toothless smile that seemed to recognize something familiar in the man before her. "She remembers me," he whispered, his voice rough with emotion. "It's been 3 months. I was afraid she wouldn't." "She's been looking at your photo," the woman admitted, showing him the wallet. "I've been telling her stories about her brave daddy." The sailor accepted the wallet with trembling hands, examining its contents with a mixture of gratitude and grief. When he reached the letter from his mother, his composure finally broke. The woman quietly picked up the baby, giving him a moment of privacy as he read his mother's final words. When he looked up, his eyes were wet but clearer somehow. "I never got to say goodbye. The emergency leave came through too late." "She knew you would have been there if you could," the woman said gently. "That's clear in her letter." He nodded, carefully returning the letter to the wallet. "I don't know how to thank you. Not just for finding this, but for taking care of my daughter when she had no one." "She had you," the woman corrected him. "She always had you, even when you were separated by an ocean." And she had your mother's love. Those don't disappear. They talked for hours as afternoon faded to evening. He shared stories of his mother's strength as a single parent, raising him while managing multiple sclerosis. How she had been determined to see her grandchild born before she passed. How the baby's mother had left shortly after the birth, unable to handle the responsibilities of parenthood. I joined the Navy to provide stability, he explained. The irony is, it's created more instability than I ever imagined. I don't know how I'm going to raise her alone with my service commitments. The woman listened, offering neither judgment nor immediate solutions. As the baby fell asleep in her father's arms, a peaceful silence settled over the cottage. I've been granted compassionate reassignment, he said finally. Shore duty, starting next month. But I need to find housing, childcare. I don't even know where to begin. The woman found herself speaking before she had fully formed the thought. I have space here. The cottage is small, but there's room enough for 2 bedrooms. I work from home. I could help with childcare while you get established. The sailor looked surprised. You've already done so much. I couldn't impose further. It wouldn't be an imposition, she said, realizing the truth of it as she spoke. This past week with your daughter has been healing for me too. I lost my mother to cancer last year. That's why I moved here, to start fresh. But I've been lonely. Having a child in the house again. She trailed off, not wanting to seem like she was using his situation for her own comfort. But he seemed to understand. Sometimes the things we lose find their way back to us in different forms, he said, glancing down at the wallet on the coffee table. Not the same, but enough to help us move forward. 2 weeks later, the sailor moved into the cottage's spare room. The arrangement was meant to be temporary, just until he found suitable housing near the base. But as weeks turned to months, the temporary solution evolved into something more permanent. The woman's remote work schedule allowed her to care for the baby during the day, while the sailor took over in the evenings and on weekends. They established a comfortable routine, occasionally sharing meals but respecting each other's privacy. The baby thrived in the stable environment, growing stronger and more curious each day. Sometimes, in the evening, the 3 of them would walk along the beach, the baby gurgling happily as waves lapped at her tiny feet. On the anniversary of the day she found the wallet, the woman came home to find a small package waiting on the kitchen counter. Inside was a shadow box, beautifully crafted from driftwood. The sailor had arranged the photos from the wallet inside, along with the letter and a small piece of the weathered leather. At the center was a new addition, a recent photograph of the 3 of them on the beach, the baby now standing with support, dressed in a tiny sailor outfit that matched her father's uniform. You returned more than just a wallet that day, read the card accompanying the gift. You returned hope when I thought it was lost at sea. The woman traced the edge of the frame, thinking about the unpredictable currents that had brought the wallet to her feet that morning. The same currents that had carried her to this unexpected family arrangement, neither conventional nor permanent, perhaps, but healing for all involved. Later that evening, as she watched the sailor reading a bedtime story to his daughter, she reflected on how finding that wallet had broken her heart in the most necessary way. It had cracked open the protective shell she had built around herself after her mother's death, allowing new connections to form where grief had previously resided. Some people might call it chance that she found the wallet that specific morning. Others might call it fate. The woman preferred to think of it as the ocean delivering exactly what was needed, precisely when it was needed most. A message in a different kind of bottle, carrying not a cry for help but the answer to one that hadn't even been voiced. Outside, the tide was coming in, erasing footprints along the shore. Tomorrow, the beach would be clean again, ready for new discoveries. The woman smiled, knowing that sometimes the most valuable finds weren't objects at all, but the connections they created between people who might otherwise have remained strangers, separated by circumstance but united by the simple compassion of one heart recognizing the needs of another. This is the end of this story. Make sure to subscribe, and for similar stories, you should watch this video. Thank you.